Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Cactus Lounge. Look at this nifty new picture I have behind me. Thanks to Michael Scott Kearns. I'm Donna Reed. I traveled in Cast A 1976. And today I'm going to be chatting with three people who participated in the Belfast portion of Ireland last summer. So on my screen, top left is Jeff. Jeff, could you please introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi, everyone. Jeff Sadroga. Currently live in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and I traveled in Class C in 1984.
All righty. And Jamie.
Hi, I'm Jamie Raditz. I am in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I traveled in 98E.
All righty. And Karen.
Hi, everybody. Karen Svikovich, currently living in Exeter, New Hampshire, and I traveled in 84B.
No wonder you guys are so close. You guys, no wonder you had dinner. You're like,
Uh-huh.
oh, wow.
We're neighbors.
For me, I just say New England and then I'm lost in
Yeah.
like whatever else
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
it breaks down. So typically when I do these interviews, I started out with this whole idea that who are you? When did you travel? What did you wear? What food did you like? What show? Things like that. But there's been a morphing over the last few years of the topics and the things that happen. And last summer was the first reunion that the Up With People International Alumni Association had had in Europe for many years. And thanks to the Irish alumni and the board, I heard wonderful things. I was not there. I'm gonna go 2026 for my 50th um, over there. And so as a result, of course, being in Tucson, I've had conversations with a lot of people who went, who didn't, what they liked, what they didn't like, and all of that. But one of the things that I've heard was that you got to know people from other casts and you chose to do activities which maybe then pushed you into getting to know people from other casts and other years. And I think we found that out on the Kosovo Albania group chat.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, I'm going to start with you. You're the current treasurer of the Up With People International Alumni Association. Uh, when you decided to do this, first of all, you were going to probably go because you were the treasurer, right? I mean, it was going to happen. How did you make the decision to choose the activities that you chose?
So I was going to say one thing leading up to that. I was just on a cruise in the Caribbean, and I equate these little side trips as like shore excursions. So
Huh?
we Belfast, and we had the Cliffs of Moher, and we had a bread baking excursion as well. And you're right, Donna. We met people from other groups simply because we were on the bus together.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just our cast. It happened to be my reunion from 1984, and
Yeah.
so it was for Karen as well. But we I I didn't go just because I was a treasurer. I went mostly because it was my cast year, but also
Yeah.
needed to be there for business as well. I chose the bread baking day, which is really kind of interesting. And we went to this farmhouse, and the grandmother was baking scones and Irish soda bread. And then we did a tour of the farm with muck boots on because we had to be careful what we stepped in around the farm. It was just a really cool get out in the middle of the country, farmland, Ireland, which was just terrific. I was on the bus with Katie and Jenny Belk. They went on the trip with us. So we sat back and talked a lot about Mr. Belk's birthday that was 100th birthday from this past week. I had already been to the Cliffs of Moher, so I didn't do that. But I did do it on the Belfast trip, which is totally separate. It happened prior to the reunion last year.
Oh,
But it was great. I had a great experience. Fully support all these side trips or excursions, as you might call them, during the
so did
reunion.
that mean that you guys had to go in early to do the Belfast thing? Okay.
Yep.
So
Okay.
it was a Thursday. I think we flew in, and then all of us ended up in Limerick on Sunday. So we
Okay.
had to get from Northern Ireland to the Ireland,
Okay.
which you may or may not realize is a separate country. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
one
Okay.
is in the European Union, the Ireland, and then and use euros, and Northern Ireland uses the pound, the British pound,
Wow.
in their
Wow.
currency.
So Jamie,
Yeah.
when you opted to do this, did did you have a specific reason that you said, I'm going to go early and I'm going to go to Belfast?
Yes. So I have been studying human rights since college, and I did a lot of work overseas in different countries after, I graduated. So with my master's in peace education and not really utilizing that master's in my day to day, I always look for opportunities not only to travel, but also to learn about different places and people. And so originally I was like, oh, I'm just going to, this is just a chance to meet up with some of my friends because it was not my cast year, but I try to do one international trip every year. And so I was like, oh, Ireland, I haven't been there yet. And I was trying to convince my mom to come with, but she was waiting for my brother for something else. So I just like, oh, as spontaneous as I am, I'll go by myself and just maybe see some of my castmates who are actually planning to be there for the week of the alumni week reunion in Limerick. And then I was like back and forth. Can I afford to go? Can I take off time to go? And because I was still working part time, so it was just something I felt like I had to do. Like it was just up my alley, so to speak. Like something that I've always wanted to put forth as a priority is peace work. And
Nice.
seeing Karen's announcements, I was getting more and more excited. Then I was trying to figure out logistics and paperwork and money and all those things to make it happen. So yeah, it was definitely a priority of mine to see what it was all about and be
Nice.
a part of it.
I would just add on, Donna, I didn't study a peace study in college. I went into business and worked for Frito-Lay in my first job. So, but just because of the exposure from Up with People and international affairs and being traveling around the world, I was interested. But I had no clue what the troubles were for Northern
Mm.
Ireland. I was a little boy whenever this stuff was on television, on the news, and you see it. I knew that it happened, but to be there up and close was really mind opening and
Yeah,
a very good
interesting.
experience. Yeah.
Jeff, it's ironic that you say that because I did a really long post yesterday because I've just been sad about the world. And I said I was 5 when Robert F. Kennedy was shot, and I was 10 when MLK. And I was in a town of 500 people. So it was happening out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we heard about it on the news whenever we heard about it on the news.
Right.
So it's a whole different place in the world right now where we all know everything or don't within a minute. So that's an interesting thing to
Yeah.
say what you learn. So Karen, you're also on the alumni board, right? Yep.
I am. Yeah, I head up what's called Global Impact, and it
Okay.
was a new role board 2 years ago. Just based on the feedback from alumni, people said we really want opportunities where alumni can get together for volunteer or learning experiences.
Right.
And so that's my charge.
Okay.
So that was with that in mind that we organized the Belfast Peace Study Group as well as the Kosovo and Albania volunteer trip.
Okay. So with the peace trip, did you as the board come together with this idea, and then was it up to Mary and the Irish alumni to like finish kind of putting it together? How did it evolve?
Yeah. So, it actually evolved initially as an idea from Mary. So Mary, who's heading up the reunion, who's an Irish citizen who spent time living and working in Belfast, said, I really feel like having a group go up to Belfast would be really in line with the mission and vision of Up With People. But at that point, she really didn't have the capacity to help with the day-to-day, planning of it. But she did put me in touch with a person by the name of Paul Smith, who heads up an organization in Belfast called Politics in Action. And they're an organization, many people that are a part of it, who really were a part on the ground of some of the peace talks in Belfast, as well as he works with youth to try to really get them more involved in the political process in Northern Ireland. So he was a perfect partner. And
Mm-hmm.
so through him, through other contacts that Mary had, through Irish alumni, and then through, to be honest, Google searches about best places to eat and things to do in Belfast, we
Yeah.
put together the trip. And, it took a lot of planning, and yet what I'm really happy about is that we'll now run a similar trip this coming year and then in 2026. And so we're going to try to incorporate some of the feedback that we got from last year's trip to make changes this year. For example, we'll be having the trip this year after Alumni Week instead of before. And I
Oh,
think
interesting.
logistically that's going to be much smoother.
Interesting. So, Jeff, I'm going to go back to you. I know there's this little chat. Is the chat that we had on WhatsApp, is that everybody that went, or like how many people did this?
I think that's everybody, including Mary, because we needed her just to be aware of what was going on, right? I mean, yeah, it was
Okay.
everyone.
Okay.
We had a
And-
total of 16 who traveled last year.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The chat was a little bit smaller because those were people who said, I really want to help you with planning for next year.
Oh,
But
got it.
it was
Okay.
16
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you left on a bus and you went for like I don't know, is it an hour? Is it 3 hours? How long of a drive and stuff? How did the day evolve? And I
Well,
don't get
I don't know about you guys, but I flew into Belfast. So
Oh,
we
because
arrived,
it was
I
before
flew
Alumni
into
Week.
Dublin.
yeah. So some did round trips, Dublin, Philly or wherever you
yeah,
came
yeah.
from. And I chose to fly into Belfast, and then we rented a car and drove to Limerick.
Oh, okay. Okay. And so tell me, I don't know, what is maybe one thing that, Jeff, you had made the comment that you knew about it, you heard about it, but you had no real idea about everything that had happened. What is something that you think you learned that might be of interest to 23,000 alumni?
The one thing is that there's still separate segregation in the city of Belfast. The
Wow.
Catholics live in one part of town, and it's like this in other cities in Northern Ireland, but in Belfast, there's still a big fence up, and there's still, you can see the demarcation between the Catholic side and the Protestant side.
Are they allowed to cross?
No, yeah, I mean, it's open from that respect at this point, but they live
Wow.
in and go to school in separate schools and live
Hmm.
in separate communities.
Wow.
I don't think it's as bad as it was, but I know it's not as bad as it was. Let's put it that way. But at the same time, there's still the segregation of the religious
Wow. I would not
sects.
have, I would have not thought that or known that either.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Jamie, what about you? Any beyond, what Jeff just said? Is there anything?
Yeah. I really learned a lot from the youth that we met there. There was
Pause
one.
one sec. How old is old for youth? What does that mean?
Oh, so 18 to 24.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. She was working with who Karen mentioned, Paul, helping out with politics and action. And she shared a lot about her own personal experiences in Northern Ireland, which I found very interesting. And like Jeff said, she still has to mark on job applications or school applications that she is Protestant or Catholic, things like that. So it's still that systematic generational discriminatory type system where they have to identify themselves in that manner. And then the other thing I found very interesting was that they do have kind of easier access to politicians and political work, but the politicians don't always um, take their recommendations or listen to what they're really asking for. They're still making arbitrary, decisions. So I found that kind of intriguing as well.
And is the whoever those people are, the lawmakers or the people that are making these decisions, is that a good mix of Catholic and Protestant? Or like,
I think there is a requirement. I think that's what we learned, that there was a requirement for how many represent each party, so to
okay.
speak. But there's also a very complicated and complex party system there that we learned about when on our tour with Karen. I'm sorry, what was the tour guide? The other Paul, I guess we could call
Yeah,
him.
his name was also Paul, but we had a professional tour guide who gave us a
Yeah.
full tour of the city. And then Paul and Emily also gave us a tour of the neighborhood. So we were able to see things that we wouldn't normally see on a formal tour.
Okay.
Yeah, but that
And
was
by the
called
way,
DP tours.
Yeah, and Paul Smith is married. So I forget who's Catholic and who's Protestant, but he has a mixed marriage, and that's
Yes.
it's a big,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. It I got to tell you, it reminds me of Jerusalem or something, you know, being there when you go from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, and
Hmm.
who doesn't go
Well,
back and forth, you
it's
know?
like
Hmm.
it's like the racial issues we've had in this country for many,
Yeah,
Yeah.
many years.
yeah,
And it's not, they're not black and white, they're
yeah.
Catholic and Protestant. So it's just
Wow.
another differentiation,
Another
which
way to divide. Yeah. Karen, what about you? What do you feel like maybe
Yeah,
you,
well, one of my goals when I first put this together as kind of learning as a process. So we had a Zoom call ahead of time, and then we were together for 3 days in Belfast, and then we also spent time at Alumni Week with a peace panel. But was that we could kind of pull out learnings from the peace process that we could apply to current challenges that we're facing internationally and in our own communities. And so one of the discussions that was really interesting to me was the discussions that were generational. So, Jamie talked about really learning a lot from Emily, who's in her mid-20s. So the people that kind of lived through the troubles, their children, and then, individuals who are in their teens now who really just have heard those stories. And through
mm,
those different perspectives, there was also a really interesting conversation about what is the best way for us to move forward, which I found
Hmm.
really fascinating. Is it better to rehash and talk about the challenges and conflicts that happened in the past so that we can process them and learn from them so they never happen again? Or is it more important that we just draw a line in the sand and say, now it's time to move forward? And that was one of the many complex questions where I think there was no right, there was no wrong.
Hmm.
But I think looking at the duality of that was really interesting to me and really eye-opening.
and
Yeah.
so you used the word for us, and I believe that you were speaking on behalf of them, right, as the us.
Mm.
But that sentence about moving forward in the world of us
Mm.
is all of us, right?
Yeah,
You
Hmm.
you're
know,
so right,
we
Donna.
we
Yeah,
may not be
yeah.
specifically impacting what's happening between Catholics and Protestants in Northern Ireland, but
Mm.
the processes and the changes still are.
Hmm.
God, there's a million Up With People songs that I think of. I think of one. Like I have lyrics running through my head.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of that, Donna, also I didn't realize this, but Give the Children Back Their Childhood was specifically
It
written
was
for the students from
in
Northern Ireland
Northern
that
Ireland.
traveled in Up With People, and
Yep.
that was, I think, so powerful.
That was
well,
that was newer, I
Mhm.
think. So I was 76, and I think maybe it came in 75 or 70, but it was right around that time that it was put in the show. Yeah.
but the
Hmm.
other thing we had, I don't remember their names, maybe Karen does, but there was a woman from Northern Ireland who was an alum. And when she spoke of her experience and her brother or brothers being taken away, it was a visceral feeling
Hmm.
felt. And she talked about this as if it was yesterday. It's
Yeah.
so
Wow.
fresh in her mind. And then we also had people from Ireland on the tour, on the group, and who spoke from their perspective of being
Hmm.
Irish and not living in Northern Ireland, but on the island, the same area of the world. So, and it was just eye-opening to listen to what these folks had to say and that their experience, especially the woman from Northern Ireland, who I felt it was still in her
Like
bones.
gut
It was still,
wrenching. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think her name was Deidre, right?
Deirdre was her name, yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that
Is she an alum, Deirdre?
yeah.
Deirdre is an alum, and she was
She's an
such a
alum, right?
great
Yeah.
contributor to our trip.
Yes.
She traveled in Up With People as a Belfast native. And then also in her cast in the 70s was someone from Ireland and also someone from England. And the three of them really talked in ways that they never would have been able to back home.
Hmm.
And she's regularly gone back to Northern Ireland, but has lived in the United States for many years. But her perspective was really invaluable, I think.
You guys got to get me her last name because I think she was a 75, 76, like right around my time frame.
Yeah, Deirdre,
Um,
Deirdre,
Yeah.
yeah.
do you know Deirdre?
It rings a bell. That's why but
So
I
her
was
last
I
name
was
is
at the end of the
Kempe.
bicentennial. So
Yeah,
like we didn't
yeah.
have as many international.
Yep.
But um so
Can I add one more thing, Donna, while you
Yeah,
think of your
because I
next
forgot my
question?
question, so go.
It's okay. So, Karen and Jeff both brought this up. Is like, yes, moving forward and having these discussions, may not have been able to happen at certain times. But there was a point that even where the impact has occurred, like there was a bombing at a local area in like the center of Belfast when we took our tour, and now it's a retail store, and the only remains are like certain parts inside the store. The discussion was, well, some people want a plaque to remember this and not to have this happen again, and some people just want to not recognize it in an official manner. But then if I was just a tourist walking by, I would never have known that that traumatic thing occurred there, So it's a huge debate, I believe, that has been going on for decades.
And I think that
Yeah.
any place where something like this has occurred, and that's what I was thinking about. So I was thinking about, I did a Rhine-Main-Mosel river cruise the other year, and our guide in Nuremberg, as we were standing at the field where Hitler had been, she's young. She goes, I just want you to know that I'm telling and sharing this history, and it's hard for me, but I do not feel responsible. And I was so thinking about the generation, the kids, it's history for them, right? In many ways.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I know Jeff knows Sebastian. Karen, do you know Sebastian Hesse? Do you pronounce it Hesse?
I know Sebastian.
Yeah. So I remember a conversation with him one time about the wall in Berlin, and at what age have the young people always been able to go back and forth? And they physically can see how one part looks different, the part, but never lived through what their parents or grandparents might have. Anyway, so I think that the older we get, the more we're gonna see that.
Yeah.
Right. And hear that. So to have a younger generation be questioning, is this okay? Does it stay this way? How do we, and we're doing that in the United States too, to be honest. Did we tear this down? Do we not tear it down? It's, I could talk ad nauseum about all of
It's
that.
a very divisive conversation, because even our tour guide was saying people that were best friends or neighbors, and they do not see eye to eye on this particular part of the history. Do we recognize it and, memorialize the people that have lost, or do we not do anything? And so far, they've not done anything. So without the tours of the history, you could just walk by something and not realize
Not even
what had
realizing
occurred there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it Deirdre Kemp in Boise? Is that the
Yeah.
place?
That's where I had just spelled her last name. Yeah.
Because that's where I would put her, Boise. No, I gotta,
That's what we said.
Yeah.
I gotta look her up.
She brought so much to the discussion.
She
Oh,
really
yeah.
did. Yeah.
Empathetic.
Total red. She's around my era. I'll have to see.
Yeah.
Okay.
You should connect with her. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I want to just move from this because we have 10 minutes left.
Okay.
And maybe if you each could say something about your experience in general in Ireland, for those who question staying in a dorm versus a hotel, and is it going to be the same? And should I do it? And if I'm old, can I sleep with this group of people? Throw something out there for those of us who are going to make this trip at 68 or 69 years old.
And you're talking about the Alumni Week.
Alumni week. Yeah, in general.
We had both. I stayed in a hotel largely because I needed to get around and do a bunch of work stuff. And I had to be I actually was working still, not my full-time job, a little bit while I was over there. So it was just a little more convenient not to be at the dorms. But I heard great things about the dorms, and they really have an individual room. It's just that you're sharing a kitchenette and a bathroom, right? Or do you have your own?
You have your own bathroom.
Yeah, you can have your own bathroom. It's quite.
But there's a common area where you share, like the
Yes.
area. Yeah, both.
I stayed in the dorms. It was my cast year, like it was Jeff's. There were 8 women that I traveled with. We had so much fun because we shared rooms and we had a bathroom in each of the rooms, but we had this common living room and we cooked meals together and
See,
Mm.
I
it was
would love
really,
that. Yeah,
really
that's
great. And then the Belfast Peace Study, it's going to be a little different this year than last year in that we'll be spending the first night at Friendship Forever International, an hour north of Belfast. And that will be more of a dorm style room. And then we'll be staying in a hotel for the subsequent 2 nights in Belfast. So there'll be a mixture. And I think there's
interesting.
positives and negatives to every sleeping situation, but the most
Yeah.
important is just, is being together.
Some people, some people many are super comfortable. When we do our reunions with my cast, it's amusing. The girls we'll put 3 in a room and the guys are like, I have my own room.
Mm.
And I'm like,
Well,
is that because you snore more or what? You know?
mm, yeah. I
To,
actually had to ask for some type of accommodations because I was having a lot of back problems and I
oh,
fell the week before going.
Mm.
So I had a really hurt, injured leg.
oh my.
So there were times where I did say, oh, I need to take a break, guys. I'll see you in a couple hours. Or like, hey, I need to be closer to wherever the action is happening. I guess you could call it during the Limerick week. And
Yeah.
so they tried their best to meet those needs. I guess for me, I did end up having my own suite. Actually, nobody else was in my half of the dorm, so I was by myself in my own room and had the whole space to myself, which was nice to have my recovery days that I needed in between activities.
Well, I
Um,
appreciate knowing about the dorms because my cast has started asking about it.
yeah.
And when we do our Airbnbs, everybody has their own place, to stay.
Hmm.
And then we meet in the kitchen or we meet outside or we meet in the, so,
Yeah.
and last time we had 2 houses in San Antonio because of the numbers and the way the rooms worked out. But
Yeah.
everybody does want to be together to be able to chat, and stuff.
Hmm.
So that sounds like either work. Jeff, did you feel like the hotels were close, far? Did you have to drive or how was that?
There are 2 hotels that we make arrangements with, and I've actually stayed in both of them.
Okay,
The Strand, which is a 15-minute walk to the campus, and it's largely a 15-minute walk because you have to walk down a long roadway to get to the university.
got it.
Other one was a Uber drive away or public transportation. There were buses, but it wasn't
Okay.
difficult at all because once you're on campus doing stuff, there's a lot of stuff to do, but then you go back home for the rest.
Yeah, at the end. Okay. Okay. Awesome.
And
And
I
they
don't know if they're going to do this year or this year coming up, but a lot of times if it was groups getting back later or something, they would say, we can drop you off at this hotel or we can, take you down the road so it'd be closer. So I think they did make a lot of adjustments and accommodations for that because they didn't want massive amounts of people having to coordinate all of that transport late at night.
Got it. Got it. All right. Any last comments that you'd like to share?
I would just encourage, anybody who's interested in possibly exploring, the Belfast Peace Study Group this year. I'm happy to have a Zoom call like this or,
That's
a phone
great.
call or an email exchange. Just to give you specifics on it, it's going to be the 27th, 28th, 29th, and 30th. So 3 nights, 4 days right after Alumni Week. And we'll travel by bus from Alumni Week to the Friendship Forever International site. And
Okay.
then we'll also have the Zoom call ahead of time and really have it be a kind of learning process. And I think one of the other things that people commented on in the evaluations afterwards is we were 16 and we really got to know each other well. And a lot of those relationships have really continued, as well as our relationship with Paul and Emily, our facilitators. So it was, I think, meaningful in a lot of different ways.
Yeah,
Nice.
and 2
Nice.
things that you just mentioned. I said that I flew into Belfast and then rented a car and went down to Limerick. I would the airport in Belfast is modern, international. All sorts of airlines come in and out. So I'd recommend flying into Ireland, either Shannon or
And then
Dublin, and flying out of
out of
Belfast.
Belfast.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good
One
thoughts.
correction I have to make. I said the Strand is the closest one to the hotel. I mean, the university. The Strand is the furthest one away, and that's where I
Okay.
stayed this
Mm.
summer.
All
But there
right.
are 2.
2 different. Okay. Okay.
I just wanted to add it was nice for me to meet some of people from all different generations of Up With People, because you all had different experiences and information to share. And then we all had different perspectives on the purpose and things that we were learning and discussing like along those 3 days in Belfast. And then I saw people throughout the week in the alumni week. And I was like, oh, hey, what's up? You know, so it was nice to see faces that I recognized because I'd only had a few castmates from my year. So it was really a good way to kind of understand what other groups have gone through in their cast years.
And you meet because of a common interest that you chose to do
Yeah.
something kind of unique. So that's awesome. All right, you guys, thank you very much. I'm going to just so you know, the 2 half-hour ones that I did with the founders of the IAA will be coming out next. And so you guys will probably be sometime in early March. Because I try to space them out at least a couple of weeks apart for people's, but I'll make sure that you know when I share it. And if you don't know already, Michael is now moving them all from the Cactus Lounge from my website. I've given him permission and he moves them all over to the IAA also, so that they're stored in both places. Because half the world has no idea that I'm doing this. I would guess out of 23,000 alumni, 150 know I'm doing it.
You're wonderful, Donna. And I
Gotta
think
start
I'll
with
get
some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, Jeff, good to see you twice in a month, right?
I can't believe it. I know.
Yeah, and Karen, nice to see you again. Jamie, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And I'm gonna quit recording and we'll say goodbye.
All right. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.